What's up guys, I'm Sean. It's finally time to lift my 2021 Toyota Tacoma TRD off-road. This is what I'm going with. Bilstein 6112s in the front with JBA Upper Control Arms. And I have the front sway bar drop bracket just in case. And for the rears, I'm going with 5100 Bilsteins and the All-Pro Off-Road Adder Leaf. I'm going to tackle the front today and then do the rears tomorrow, so it's probably going to be 2 videos. Here's my truck, stock height, no lift, just 33s. Measuring tape to the floor. To my fender, it's about 35.5 inches. I'm going to start on the front driver's side. And I'm going to start on the front coilover first, and then I'm going to do the JBA Upper Control Arms later, just in case if you're not going to change yours, then you don't have to worry about it. I'm going to loosen the 19, but I'm not going to remove it yet. I'm going to loosen the sway bar on both sides. Both sides of the sway bar loosen, then I can move it out of the way. I'm going to put a mark on the lower control arm. And obviously you have to get alignment later, but I'm gonna do this now because I'm gonna loosen that, and when I get back to it I remember where I was at. So I'm gonna loosen the 22 and the 22. I removed the original skid plate. I'm gonna do a technique that doesn't involve spring compressors. It could be dangerous, so do this at your own risk. So with the jack putting pressure on the coilover, I'm going to loosen the 2 bolts right here. The shock's going to spin, so I'm going to use another open end to hold the top while I loosen up the nut. Top screw is loose and I know there's no tension. Now we're going to slowly bring down the coilover. Yeah. The coilover's out of the car. The stock top hat is still there. I'm going to reuse mine because my car is pretty much brand new. Only has about 3,000 miles. But if you have a lot of mileage on yours, you probably want to replace the stock top hat. The circlip on the strut body determines the height. I think the Toyota Tacoma is notorious for the taco lean, where the driver's side is lower than the passenger side. So in the instructions it says go number 6 on the driver's side and number 5 on the passenger side. The circlip is a pain in the ass, so instead of going up, I decided just to go down and out, and I'm going to go from the top because I wanted to be up here anyway. Alright, here's the circlip installed on the number 6, the highest level on the driver's side. Following the instructions, the spring mount that sits on the bottom of the spring, and the circlip sits inside of this groove, goes like this. Then I'm going to install the spring. Sits like that. Logo facing up. I'm going to install this supplied rod adapter, counter bore down onto the shock. So now I'm ready to install this into the car. Alright, I have the jack lined up, ready to go. And I'm lining up the spring to the groove of the top hat. And I'm going to make sure the piston comes straight through, cleanly through the top hole. You can see the thread come through cleanly. Now I'm going to install the bushing from Bilstein, the washer from Bilstein, and then the nut from Bilstein. Now I'm going to tighten the top nut, and Bilstein says only 20 foot-pounds, which is not much. I don't even know how you can get a torque wrench in here, but You gotta estimate 20 foot-pounds. And if the piston spins, then you gotta use a tool to hold the piston. All right, this is all tight. Everything's lined up. Now I gotta reinstall the bolts in the bottom. Well, that's how you do the front coilover in a nutshell. It's actually pretty easy without the spring compressor. Now I just have to do the other side. And then after that, I'm going to do the upper control arms. Alright, I bent the sheet metal. Now I'm able to remove this huge bolt. And now I could just remove the OEM upper control arm. Here's the JBA upper control arms. And the installation instructions are pretty good. In this version, the bushing and the sleeves are already installed, which is nice. And they gave a little bit of extra bushing lubricant for the outside. And then there's Zerk fittings that they recommend to grease up every few thousand miles. So I'm going to install it first, then I'm going to grease up the Zerk fittings. This is what I did earlier. Actually helped to remove the bolt and also helped to get the bolt back in. Channel lock grips. See, help slide the bolt in. Alright, I got that long bolt in. Bolt, thick washer, upper control arm, thin washer, thick washer, nut, and continue the installation with the ball joint. The JBA arm is installed. I just removed the passenger side upper control arm. It wasn't too bad, same thing, bend the sheet metal. And what made it easy is I removed the 10mm bolt holding on to the AC hardline, and gives you a little bit more room. You want to be careful not to damage the AC line. The passenger side is installed. Actually, it wasn't bad. I think it was easier than the driver's side. Now we're going to do the sway bar drop bracket. Bought this online. It's only about 20 bucks. Bilstein shock body is 2.6 inches, so it's a lot thicker than stock. So by moving the sway bar down and forward just a little bit, it gives it a little bit more clearance. It might not be necessary because I think it clears already, but a little bit extra clearance doesn't hurt. I'm going to reuse the stock hardware to mount the spacer into the truck. Torque these two bolts down. And then install this to the threads right there. And now I just have to do the other one on this side. Sway bar drop bracket installed. Definitely way more clearance. So for 20 bucks, I highly recommend it. Now I just reinstall the sway bar end link and put everything back together, and I'll post the torque spec at the end of the video. Now the suspension under load using a jack. And I'm going to go back to my mark right here and tighten up the alignment bolts. Try to get it close to where it was. Torque everything to spec, and then of course go get a professional alignment. This is the grease pump I picked up from Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. and I'm using the grease recommended by JBA. And I use the grease pump and I installed into the Zerk fittings, and then I pumped it up with grease, and you can see it oozes out on the side. Let's clean that up a little bit. Alright guys, everything done. Bilstein 6112 coilovers, JBA Upper Control Arms, and an aftermarket sway bar drop kit. Here's the driver's side. The JBA Upper Control Arm, some people say it's not needed, but I went ahead and went with it anyway because this gives me more caster, which is better for alignment, better for handling. It gives me a little bit more droop because the ball joint allows a little bit more articulation. The sway bar bracket moves the sway bar down 15 millimeters and forward a few millimeters, which gives more clearance. And the Bilstein 6112 gives me 2-inch lift in the front. Alright, here's the measurement after the front lift. I'm at 37 3/4. Before it was 35 1/2. So it's about 2 1/4 inch lift. But it hasn't settled yet, and more importantly, I haven't lifted the rear yet. Once I lift the rear, it's going to bring the front down a little bit. Plus it's going to take some time to settle. It looks a lot higher right now because it has to settle and the rears are still stock. So stay tuned for my next video where I lift up the rear, Bilstein 5100 shocks, and the All-Pro Off-Road Adder Leaf. So the rear I'm going to lift 2 inches and the front should be about 2 inches. And then I'm going to let it all settle down, and then I'm going to get an alignment. So stay tuned for my next video. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.